introduce our first speaker. Can we get some volunteers to help clean up afterwards? Thank you, volunteers. And I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Sara B.
Love you too. Let me get situated really quick. Okay. Okay. My name's Sara B, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Sarah.
Before I get started, I saw Anthony yesterday, and he was like, Did you get prepared? Did you write notes? And I was like, no. I did, but I will write some bullet points. So my name's Sara B, and I'm an addict. I'm going to start with reading out of the literature just a little bit. This is out of the Just for Today, out of the Blue Book, Living the Program. From isolation of our addiction, we find the fellowship of people with a common bond of recovery. NA is like a lifeboat in a sea of isolation, hopelessness, and destructive chaos. Our faith, strength, and hope come from the people sharing their recovery and from our relationship with God of our own understanding. And I just want to kind of open with that and recognize this group and this moment. And this is also Recovery Month. And it's also some other things going on. Oh, we're going to get political. I won't do that. So I just want to honor Recovery Month. I'm honored to have been asked to share my experience, strength, and hope. And with that, I'll shamelessly plug, which I should have done during announcements, which is H&I. So if you have 6 months clean and you want to share your experience, strength, and hope, then please come see us at H&I. Let's see. Our next meeting is on September 27th. And I know I'm trying to eat up my time, right? No, I was kidding. On 4033 Southeast Woodstock. You can get more information with me. Yeah, 6 o'clock. So anyways, like I said, my name's Sara B, and I'm an addict. And I'm also honored to share this podium with all of you and Anthony today. Anthony, I've known Anthony since I first got into recovery, and he's always been a solid person for me, always spoke recovery to me, and actually been for lack of a better term, cheerleader, as also a professional. As we, stay in recovery, we start to get jobs and careers and stuff like that. And Anthony's always been a person I can lean on and talk to, and I just really, really respect him, and I'm honored to share this podium with him tonight. So I'm going to try to I'll talk about my story a little bit. I'm going to try to stay out of the mess because it's a long story because I'm older. I just turned 50. Yay! I have a lot of story. Needless to say that I didn't get clean until I was almost 38, and I didn't even know how old I was anymore. I didn't know what day of the week it was. I didn't know what month it was or what year it was. That type of thing did not matter to me anymore, So I started using I started drinking when I was a young kid, and with my father in the house. And, I had lots of dreams and lots of energy and a big imagination when I was little, and you probably heard a lot of people talk about this. When we're little kids, we don't grow up and think, oh, I'm going to be an addict, right? But I didn't realize that I was growing up in a house with an addict. My father was an addict, and I was going to grow up and be like him. I wanted to be like my dad. I loved my dad. I thought he was really cool. If I get emotional, then I'm going to be I don't know what I'm thinking about now. So I grew up, going to get the beers, cracking the beers, doing all of that stuff. So I started at a very young age, having access and kind of exploring that feeling of not having to be in myself, right? And so when I was about 14 is when my addiction went full-fledged. I started drinking. I started using meth, they called crank back then, and smoking pot. And I was, going out and hitting the clubs and dancing. We had all the underage clubs back then, back in Salem, and everybody from Portland would come down and we'd be like, hey, it was so much fun. And, but, I was creating, and the book talks about, right? So we have these times where things are fun, right? And we don't realize that, like, what destruction is coming ahead. And, I didn't realize that. I thought it was just having fun. But, I continued to use. I met the man of my dreams when I was like 15, almost 16. He was fresh out of the penitentiary. And, I was like, that's my boo. I'm going to have his babies. I'm going to tie him down. And that didn't work out so well. But I ended up having 2 kids with him. And my sons now are 32 and 31. And, so I was having babies. And I'd say about the age of 16, me and my dad, I found my dad's drugs. I knew my dad did drugs. I didn't know what kind of drugs. I knew he drank and stuff. So I found my dad's drugs. And then after that, we started using drugs together. And, and I processed that, right? I should be like fucking mad at him, right? But I don't think, and I know he had a lot of shame around that. So I don't want to say it was okay or he was trying to hurt me. I think in his head, he thought he was trying to save me from what was out there, right? Or whatever. But, so, I was using drugs with my dad. I had kids. I had this, boyfriend, that was a lot older than me. Well, not a lot, like 5 years. Seemed like a lot back then. And, my life became really, really unmanageable. I look back at pictures of myself when I was that young, and I thought I was so fucking grown up, right? Excuse my language, but I thought I was so big dog. And really, I was just a little girl. And anyways, I ended up leaving that relationship, and then I kind of just really spun out of control, and I started hanging out with a lot of people with not the best things in mind for me and whatnot, and I started using drugs in a type of manner that I know I didn't ever think I would, and I just totally spun out of control. And I think when I was about 21, I decided that I was going to stop using drugs. I looked at my kids, and they were running around, and I was just, all the chaos that's happening around you when you're using drugs. I looked at my kids, and I was like, oh, God, I got to quit. I got to stop doing this. So, I quit cold turkey. I didn't know about a program. I didn't have a God of my understanding. I didn't know about a program, but I quit using methamphetamines. But I continued to drink and smoke pot every day. I was a blackout drunk. I was a functional drunk. But I went to work every day. I took my kids to school. But every day when they came home from school, I was like, hurry up and do your homework so I can drink. Hurry up and go to your room so I can get drunk in the backyard. Hurry up and go to bed so I can go to the bar. And I lived like that for another 8 years. And I had another kid too, so I have 3 sons. I have 3 sunshines. This is my tattoo for them. 3 sons. So I think when I was about, when I was about 30, so living like that, being a functional, society says it's okay to be this raging alcoholic, right? So we can't be drug addicts on the street, right? But we can be raging alcoholics in the bar, right? And dysfunctional families. So anyways, when I was 30, some stuff happened, my life fell apart, and I went back to using drugs. And the next 8 years of my life was completely hopeless, walking around in circles, making the same mistakes over and over, just wanting no light in my life, But there was a certain part of me that thought I was having fun. I thought I was having fun. I thought I had some sort of false freedom in the drugs, right? Some false freedom walking around at 3 o'clock in the morning. looking at people's front yards if I could steal something or pick their flowers or, whatever. Which I did a lot of flower picking. And, needless to say also that my sons were becoming teenagers, my oldest sons, and, they started experimenting with drugs too. And then the next thing you know, I'm drinking with them. And then next thing you know, our friends, my friends are their friends, and their friends are my friends, and we're swapping drugs, and we're drinking, and like the house is crazy. Police are coming over there all the time, windows are broken, all the stuff, and like I use drugs with my kids. It's not like the proudest moment of my life, clearly, but I like to share that because I feel like there's a lot of families out here where it's generational, and I need to share that because I need to tell you that we do recover. Families do recover. And so I said I wasn't going to share all my mess. I'm trying to be really brief. I am. And so, in that, I was using with my kids. My youngest son went to go live with his dad. A lot of stuff happened. Anyways, I started going in and out of jail. And when I was in jail, I was able to get a moment of reprieve. I was able to not use any drugs or get drunk or anything like that. I only had me, right? And so I was able to start to literally how the book talks about us connecting to a higher power and all this admitting oh my gosh, I think I have a problem. You know what I mean? All that stuff started happening naturally in jail for me. I started to get a conscious contact with a higher power through the death. My dad had died during all of that. That's kind of what's made me spiral out all that 8 years. But anyways, so in jail is when I started to get a conscious contact with my higher power. And in that, I felt love. I felt forgiveness. I felt this unconditional love. Now my view on my higher power has evolved. And at the time, I needed a higher power that made me look at myself, that made me say, look at the wreckage you've caused. You know what I mean? It's not like you're a bad person, but the things you're doing are not good. You're hurting yourself. You're hurting the people you love. But I love you, and it's going to be okay. And in that, somebody came to me and was like, hey, you want to go to this meeting? And I was like, what meeting? But because I'm still on the fence, what it talks about, I'm on the fence. I'm starting to build a conscious contact, but I'm not like, hey, I want to get clean. I'm like, hey, when am I getting out? You know what I mean? So I can go get high. And my friend was like, hey, you want to go to this meeting? And I was like, what meeting? She's like, it's just this meeting where these people, that used to use drugs and drink, and they don't do that anymore. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go to that. That sounds lame. They sound lame, right? And I was like, because I was the type of person where I was like, if you didn't use drugs, I was like, you should use drugs. You should use drugs. You know what I mean? Hey, let's have that. Because I didn't hang out with people that didn't use drugs. I didn't have, wasn't my lifestyle. And so my son, my middle son, happened to be in jail at the same time as me. This is what a stand-up mom I was. And I was like, maybe I could see my son in the hallway, in the little window, right? So I'll go to the meeting. That was my higher power, right? And I went to that meeting, and I sat down in that chair with that chip on my shoulder, thinking that if I wanted to get clean, I could do whatever I wanted, right? I was my own higher power. And I heard things that I never, I can't even remember what they said, but I remember the feelings. I remember that I was like, oh yeah, that's me too. Oh yeah, that's me too. And my heart just coming out of my chest. And when they talk about sitting in your seat and holding on to your seat, literally that's what I was doing in that plastic seat at the Inverness jail. I don't know if you know the plastic seats I'm talking about. And I was crying, and I was grabbing tissue and all that stuff. And I just remember it planted a seed. It did something to me, and things were not the same for me after that. I'm so grateful for the people that come into and go to the detoxes and the treatment centers and the jails, and just anytime we get in time to share a message. I try to share a message when I walk outside my front door. I live on 122nd Burnside. There's people out there all day, every day, young people, hunched over in a corner. Anyway, so eventually going in and out of jail, going to a couple of the meetings, and when I go out and get high, I don't know how much time do I have, so I can bounce around. 15 more minutes? Okay, cool. So anyways, I was eventually, I'm trying to get to that part, because I want to share more. I want to share about my how I live clean too, and all the miracles and all how rich my life is. And I don't mean rich in material things. I mean rich in friendships and relationships, and like the integrity I have in myself today, even when it's hard, and the courage that I've cultivated through this program. Okay, so anyways, the last day I went to jail, I was outside. I'd been up for a little while, and I was out by 181st and out by the Coetus Men Treatment Center, and my oldest son was in treatment. And I was like, why are you going to treatment? You know, I'm like, you couldn't find anybody to pee for you? And he was like, no, Mom, great mom, 100, Mom of the Year. Anyways, and so I was out there, I was shoplifting, I had all my little Dollar Tree cards and all my candy, and all this stuff, and I walk around the corner, and there's my son standing in front of the treatment center, and I'm walking close to him, and as I approach him, I see sparkle in his eye, I see light in his eye, I see life in his eye that I had not seen in years. And he didn't look at me like, Tweaker Mom, get away from me. You're embarrassing me. He looked at me like he loved me and he wanted me to have what he had. He embraced me. He helped save me. All my boys did. And that night I went to jail. I think I got like 5 blocks away. I don't know if you guys know where Coetus Men Treatment Center is, but there's like a park, like 4 or 5 blocks away. And when I saw my son, it was light, and by the time I got to the park, it was dark. I don't know how that happens, but it did. And my friend said, don't jaywalk. And I was like, what? Nobody's not going to arrest me for jaywalking. I'm cool. I have my fucking roll suitcase, and my bags, And, but that was back in the day where you couldn't just like hang around with those types of things. And anyways, I got pulled over for jaywalking, and the cop, yeah. I did. And I remember just getting in the back of the car. This is after I heard the message. The seed was planted. All those things were happening. My son's in treatment. All this stuff's happening. Everything's aligning, right? And I just sat in the back of the car, and I told the cop, I said, I'm done. And he was like, sure you are. And then I get to jail, and I tell my friends, I'm done. And they're like, okay, all right, girl. And I started writing my PO, and I was like, don't let me out of here, put me in treatment. Do not let me out of here, put me in treatment. I was desperate because I knew I didn't have any friends that didn't use drugs. I didn't have a relationship with my mom anymore. My mom had a restraining order on me for the last 4 years of my addiction. I learned to jump fences really well. I get to stay in her garage, and I'd be like, bye. So I did end up getting help. I did get released, and I didn't get released to treatment, but I did make it to treatment. Hi. And now I'm all nervous, my friends here. And anyways, and so I did get released to treatment, and that's where it all started for me. Well, also when I was in jail, I found out that my middle son had gotten some assault charges, and he was 17 and was looking at a lot of time. And so my world was I was just I had nothing left to lose, right? And so I went into treatment ablazing, open to the process. And I learned how to have relationships in treatment. I learned how to deal with my feelings. I learned how to recognize what was triggering me, what was making me do something that I hated so much. I wrote a goodbye letter to my drug of choice. What at one point was my best friend, and in my mind helped me get through a lot of things, right? That drug was there for me when nobody else was. But it also was the thing that took my life and took everything from me. And it was a hard letter to write. In treatment, I started getting involved in NA outside of treatment. You know what I mean? I started, because I went to treatment like 3 days later. I had a bunch of food stamps too. I didn't know. 10 minutes? Okay, I didn't know I had a bunch of food stamps. So anyways, I went to treatment. I got involved in NA. I would go to a meeting as much as I could. I got into service. As soon as I had 6 months clean, I went to H&I. Started sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And when I was about a year and a half clean, I got a sponsor. And she's right there. She's right over there. And today, I did all the things that the program suggested. I went to meetings. I went to several meetings a day. I got grounded in the program. That's what I was told to do, and that's what I did. And I learned to have fun in recovery. I learned how to give of myself a service without expecting anything back, because in my life, everything was super transactional. I'm not trying to say it, I'm not still like that sometimes, you know what I mean? But I'm like, you want a cigarette? You got a lighter? You got a lighter? You know what I mean? I wanted everything. I wanted something from everybody. Everything was super transactional. In NA, I learned to give of myself freely, and it felt good. And I didn't just do it in NA. I got involved in my school. I got involved in my treatment center. I got involved in the church I was going to at the time. I was like being of service anywhere I could be, because I was trying to, I wanted to be of service. I wanted to. There was something in me that wanted to do those things. Let's see. So I'm going to talk about, here, let me get my notes. Hold on a second. I want to talk about this. Okay. So I want to talk about recovering as a family. As a parent that, used with my children, and we had unhealthy boundaries, right? We had we love each other. We loved each other. We still were down for each other, you know what I mean? But we had to learn to be down for each other in a different type of way, right? And that was really hard. My middle son right now is getting out in 4 days. He's doing his third set in prison. And there was, after he went that first time, when he got out, I was clean and his brother was clean. And he came back to a whole nother world, right? And I had to learn how to set boundaries with him. And I had to start, say, hey, these are the rules. You got to follow them, and then help him. And then also learn how not to parent out of guilt, right? And that was super hard. And then my own ego obsession, right? And wanting to control things. Just all the things that it talks about it in the book. And I'm going to read real quick. Parenthood is one area where our self-centeredness can do real harm. Working a program of recovery keeps us from getting drawn into our self-obsession and helps us to see that we are recreating old patterns that we don't want to carry to the next generation. Simply living our lives of honesty and integrity sets a pattern of change. Our example teaches our children I have partials in now, so it makes my hard to talk. Okay, so our example teaches our children more than our words ever can. If we have been separated from our kids for a while, we may need to get to know each other again, as we have learned to deal with each other. There is often a struggle when we reunite with our children. They have their feelings about what has happened, and it can be painful to acknowledge them. Our relationship with our children can be poisoned not only by the damage we do in our addiction, but to the guilt and shame that we feel what happened. Absolutely. Self-loathing is just another form of self-obsession, and it blinds the needs of the person in front of us. When we get out of our own way, we find that we can be good parents at any stage of our children's lives, even if they're already adults. We still have something to offer them. Our experience with selfless service in recovery teaches them that if we show up with our willingness, the opportunity for us to help will naturally appear. Well, that's the end. So when I was preparing to talk, and I was like, oh my gosh, so many times I did that. I would respond to my children out of self-centeredness, especially my youngest son, who I didn't see for a long time, because I wanted him to love me. I wanted to be his mom again. And that's not the way it worked, right? But we have built a relationship, and it was hard in the beginning. But now we love each other so much. He calls me all the time. He just moved back in my house. He's 24. But he respects me. All my children, like even the ones that I use drugs with. My oldest son just went through a relapse. And I was there, I was able to help him. Like the book says, I just keep showing up as me, right? I just keep being of service. And all I can do is say, hey, I can't fix it for you, but when you're ready, I have the tools, I can help you. You know what I mean? I can show you the way. You got to do it yourself though, but I can show you the way. And all that stuff I've learned through this program. And then I also wanted to talk about, and I have grandchildren. I guess I'm only going to talk about my family because I have a whole list of things here, like dealing with imposter syndrome in recovery. Do we do that? Imposter syndrome is real. I'll just go over there. Staying connected to the program and loving our higher power. Those are all the things. I guess I need a whole hour. I didn't know. Okay. So I have grandchildren now that that I absolutely love and adore. And I've had to learn that I'm not their parent, right? I don't get to reimagine their lives and recreate the life for my grandchildren that I didn't get to do for my kids. Do I have more tools in my belt now that I could give advice to my children about their parenting or about what's going on? Yes. But is it my job to force that on them? No. I want to be loving and understanding to my children in all stages of their life. I respect my kids so much and their choices and value. I feel like even though we go through all that and we might have not been the best parents, but how do we quote unquote say what that is? That bond that I have with my children and the respect that they have for me, for changing my life around and for always being there I'm a staple in their life. They don't have to worry about that. I'm always there for them. I'm always there for my grandchildren. And my grandchildren have never seen me high. That is the most impactful thing for me. They would not even know. I'm the cool grandma, right? But I'm also no, you can't do that. So I do want to read, I'm a little bossy because I'm a Leo, so I try not to live in that part of me. I do want to read about the higher power, and then I'll kind of leave with that. Sorry I didn't get to everything I wanted to. As we become more God-reliant and gain more self-respect, we realize that we don't need to feel superior or inferior to anyone. Our real value is being ourselves. Our ego, once so large and dominant, that now it takes the back seat because we are in perfect harmony with a loving God. We find we lead richer, happier, and much fuller lives when we lose self-will. We become able to make wise and loving decisions based on the principles and ideals that we have real value in our lives. By sharpening our thoughts and our spiritual ideals, we are freed to become who we want to be. What we had feared, we can now overcome through our dependence on a loving God. Faith has replaced our fear and given us freedom from ourselves. Thank you.